Hi friends, Cass here. I hope you're all doing well. Crazily enough, another season has gone by. Can hardly believe it, we're already in December. That means that my autumn TBR has been sitting on my book cart for long enough, and it is time to talk about my winter TBR. I did really well with my autumn TBR this year, I think. I had 10 books on the list and I read 7 of them. There were only 3 that I didn't get to. I think that 70% is a pretty good ratio. I'm gonna post a short talking about which books I got to and which books I didn't from that list. I'm not really a short form content girly, but I'm trying a little bit with it for something different and fun. I don't know. Let me know if there's anything that you guys want to see on shorts in particular. But yeah, every season I like to comb through my bookshelves and pick out 10 to 12 books, I would say, that I physically own and would like to prioritize in the upcoming season. I don't stick to this list as like an end-all be-all rule where I have to read every single book that I pick out, but it's just nice for me to have something that is kind of a smaller curated collection to choose from rather than being overwhelmed by my entire bookshelf when I'm trying to figure out what to pick up next. So yeah, I have 12 books here today. No real rhyme or reason as to why I picked them. They just sounded interesting when I was going through my shelves. I don't really have like a theme or anything that I'm exploring in the season, just books that have been lingering on my shelves that I'm excited to get to. Most of what I have to talk about here today is literary fiction, but I also love nonfiction and really enjoy talking about essay collections and memoirs. So if that's also your kind of thing, you should subscribe, leave a comment, let me know if you've read any of these books, let me know what you plan on getting into this winter. I feel like it's always a good time for like really long books or getting into a series, which are 2 things that I typically don't do, but I would love to hear about your guys' plans. Also, I'm test running an outfit here today. I literally have like pajama shorts on, but I saw a Pinterest outfit of this girl in like a cream cable knit sweater and a denim button up underneath, and I don't have like a cable knit, but I do have this and I feel very cute, so good stuff. Let's get into these books. We have no particular order here. The first one that I'm going to talk about is What Are You Going Through by Sigrid Nunez. I feel like I've seen quite a few people talking about this recently. I don't have names off of the top of my head, but I've seen this pop up on Goodreads quite a lot, and I've seen really high praise for it, and I see really high praise for Sigrid in general. I've read 2 of her books, one of them being her novel The Friend, and then the other being her memoir about Susan Sontag. I can't remember the name of it. And I thought that both of them were fine. They weren't my favorite things ever, but she is an author that I am interested in reading more of. So I've had this as a half-price books purchase sitting on my shelves forever, so we're gonna try it. The description of this book says, a woman describes a series of encounters she has with various people in the ordinary course of her life. An ex she runs into by chance at a public forum, an Airbnb owner unsure how to interact with her guests, a stranger who seeks help comforting his elderly mother, a friend of her youth now hospitalized with terminal cancer. In each of these people, the woman finds a common need, the urge to talk about themselves and to have an audience to their experiences. The narrator orchestrates this chorus of voices for the most part as a passive listener until one of them makes an extraordinary request, drawing her into an intense and transformative experience of her own. That almost gives me Outline by Rachel Cusk vibes, the part where it's like a chorus of voices and the narrator's just a passive listener. That's giving Outline to me, but it sounds like we maybe get a bit more action in the end of this. I'm really interested in this after rereading that description. I feel like the need to be heard is something that is so prevalent with like social media, and I mean even me just sitting here talking to my phone, making these videos, like people like to talk about themselves. And yeah, I feel like this is gonna have hopefully something interesting to say about that. Next, I would like to read The Life of the Mind by Christine Smallwood. This is another used book purchase that I've had for so long, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. I purchased this because of Jalen from the Bar in the Bookcase. He has raved about this on his channel before, and I can't say no to a Jalen recommendation. I also love this cover. This is also kind of giving me Rachel Cusk vibes, the Picador editions. Or is that Picador? Yeah. The Picador editions with the white, background. Love it. The description for this says, as an adjunct professor of English in New York City with little hope of finding a permanent position, Dorothy feels like a janitor in the temple who continued to sweep because she had nowhere else to be, but who had lost her belief in the essential sanctity of the enterprise. No one but her boyfriend knows that she's just had a miscarriage, not her mother, her best friend, or her therapists. Dorothy has 2 of them. She wasn't even sure she wanted to be a mother, so why does Dorothy feel like a failure? The Life of the Mind is a book about endings, of youth, of ambition, of possibility, but also of the meaning that an inquiring mind can find in the mess of daily experience. Mordant and remorselessly wise, this jewel of a debut cuts incisively into life as we live it and how we think of it. Sounds great. That's a lie. I was gonna say I don't think that I've really read any books talking about miscarriages, but I think that I have, actually, on second thought. But not a topic that I feel like we see explored a lot. And yeah, I know that Jalen described this as like a thinky woman kind of masterpiece, so I'm in. I was also talking to Claire in the video that we did together about how I wanted to read another poetry collection, hopefully before the end of the year, but if I get to it in January or February, that'll be fine too. And the one that I had pulled off of my shelf was Bright Dead Things by Ada Limon, who was the poet laureate of the United States. I'm not 100% sure how that distinguishment, is that a word? I'm not sure how that whole title works, but yes, I've heard really wonderful things about her poetry, and I just feel like this short little collection will be something good to dip in and out of over the course of the winter. I recently read Dreamwork by Mary Oliver, and I really enjoyed just kind of letting the poetry wash over me. I didn't really have any super intellectual thoughts about it afterwards, but I enjoyed the experience, and I'm looking to bring more of that into my reading life. The description says, a book of bravado and introspection, of feminist swagger and harrowing loss, this 4th collection considers how we build our identities out of place in human contact, tracing in intimate detail the ways the speaker's sense of self both shifts and perseveres as she moves from New York City to rural Kentucky, loses a dear parent, ages past the capriciousness of youth, and falls in love. Ada Limon has often been a poet who wears her heart on her sleeve, but in these extraordinary poems, that heart becomes a huge, beating genius machine, striving to embrace and understand the fullness of the present moment. I am beautiful, I am full of love, I am dying, the poet writes. Building on the legacies of forebears such as Frank O'Hara, Sharon Olds, and Mark Doty, Limon's work is consistently generous, accessible, and effortlessly lyrical through every observed moment. Though every observed moment feels complexly thought, felt, and lived. Yeah, looking forward to just incorporating a little bit more poetry into my life. So this should be a good one. I also always, I feel like, in these TBR lists have an Annie Ernaux to read. I am really trying to get to the end of Ernaux's catalog without just like barreling through all of her books. I know a lot of people have wanted to see kind of a where to start with Annie Ernaux video, and I have, I think, 4 more books on my shelf by her besides this. There's a couple that I don't own, but I think they're kind of like older, lesser known ones. So yeah, I'm like working my way through, and hopefully we'll be able to make that video at some point in early 2025. but I would like to read a woman's story next. This book is Annie Ernaux's deeply affecting account of mothers and daughters, youth and age, and dreams and reality. Upon her mother's death from Alzheimer's, Ernaux embarks on a daunting journey back through time as she seeks to capture the real woman, the one who existed independently from me, born on the outskirts of a small Normandy town, and who died in the geriatric ward of a hospital in the suburbs of Paris. She explores the bond between mother and daughter, tenuous and unshakable at once, the alienating worlds that separate them, and the inescapable truth that we must lose the ones we love. In this quietly powerful tribute, Ernaux attempts to do her mother the greatest justice she can, to portray her as the individual she was. Love that. She writes, I believe I am writing about my mother because it is my turn to bring her into the world. I've read another book of Ernaux's where she talks about her mother called I Remain in Darkness. That also went into her mother's battle with Alzheimer's at the end of her life, and that is a topic that is near and dear to my family, so I have a feeling this is going to be a tough read, but a really good one, as Ernaux's books are always just wonderful. Next, we have, I think, the longest book on this list, and that is Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer. I believe Claire has read this, and I think she really enjoyed it, and I don't actually really remember what this is about, so let's find out. Leah, her husband Harry, and their beloved daughter Iris are a precisely balanced family of three, with Iris struggling to navigate the social tightrope of early adolescence. Their tender home is a much-needed refuge. But when a sudden diagnosis threatens to derail each of their lives, the secrets of Leah's past come rushing into the present, and the world around them begins to transform. Deftly guided through time, we discover the people who shaped Leah's youth, from her deeply religious mother to her troubled first love. In turn, each will take their place in the shifting landscape of Leah's body, at the center of which dances a gleeful narrator, learning her life from the inside, growing more emboldened by the day. Pivoting between the domestic and the epic, the comic and the heartbreaking, this astonishing novel unearths the darkness and levity of one woman's life to symphonic effect. This sounds like it's going to be a great big old book to just curl up with in these winter months. I'm very intrigued by this description and very excited to see how I find this. My next two books are actually both books that I purchased when I was in Chicago over the summer, so that's fun. I have Promising Young Women by Suzanne Scanlon. This is a little Dorothy Project edition. I absolutely love the vibes of everything that this publishing project puts out, and this one is a signed copy as well, so that's very fun. I read Suzanne Scanlon's memoir, Committed, on Meeting in Mad Women back in May, maybe, I think, and absolutely loved it. Thought that it was so well written, so interesting. Like, I flew through that book, so I'm really interested in reading her other works. I have one other book by her on my shelf. I can't remember the title of it. It's like the index of her 39th year or whatever. But I want to get to this one first. The description says, a series of fragmentary tales tells the story of Lizzie, a young woman who, in her early 20s, unexpectedly embarks on a journey through psychiatric institutions, a journey that will end up lasting many years. With echoes of Sylvia Plath and against a cultural backdrop that includes Shakespeare, Woody Allen, and Heathers. Love Heathers. I just rewatched that movie last weekend, I think. I was obsessed with it in high school and also loved the musical, and I was like, let me rewatch, and it's so good. Suzanne Scanlon's first novel is both a deeply moving account of a life of crisis and a brilliantly original work of art. So this seems like it's going to be maybe kind of a fictionalized version of the events that she talks about in Committed. So excited to see how those two kind of compare. Did I finish saying what I needed to say? I just trailed off and I don't remember. My other Chicago book purchase that I'm hoping to read this winter is The Coming Bad Days by Sarah Bernstein. I know Sarah Bernstein has another book out, Study for Obedience, I think it's called, and I've seen some hype about that. I think that Jessica from Bloomhouse Books actually did like a little interview with Sarah Bernstein on Substack, if I'm remembering correctly. I'll link that down below if I'm correct. I don't have a copy of that book, but I do have a copy of this book, so I wanted to see what Sarah Bernstein's all about. The description for this says, a woman leaves the man she lives with and moves to a low stone cottage in a university town. She joins an academic department and, high up in her office on the 13th floor, begins a research project on the poet Paul Celan. She knows nothing of Celan, still less of her new neighbors or colleagues. She is in self-imposed exile, hoping to find dignity in her loneliness. Like everywhere, the abiding feeling in the city is one of paranoia. The weather is deteriorating, the ordinary lives of women are in peril, and an unexplained curfew has been imposed. But then she meets ... But then she meets Clara, a woman who is her exact opposite, decisive, productive, and assured. As their friendship grows in intimacy, Clara suggests another way of living, until an act of violence threatens to sever everything between them. A penetrating portrait of feminine vulnerability and cruelty, Sarah Bernstein's extraordinary debut is intelligent, brutal, sure, and devastatingly funny. This one sounds very mysterious to me. The bad weather and the lives of women being in peril feel very of the times. So I'm sure that this is going to have a lot to say on our current condition in the world. Next up, we have a nerd that I would like to get to, a New York Review Books edition. And this is actually one that is by an author that I've read before, and I'm really hungry for more of her work. So I'm really hoping that this one works for me. And that is Valentino and Sagittarius by Natalia Ginzburg. I absolutely loved her other book, The Dry Heart, and I'm hoping that this is a similar, really like sharp, biting prose tale of feminine rage. I don't know if that's what this is going to be about, but that's what The Dry Heart was, and it was so good. So this is actually two, I think, like kind of short stories or novellas in one. I'm not sure if they're like actually related to each other or if they just kind of compiled them into one edition. Let's see if the description tells us. Valentino and Sagittarius are two of Natalia Ginzburg's most celebrated works, tales of love, hope, and delusion, love that are full of her characteristic mordant humor, keen psychological insight, and unflinching moral realism. Valentino is the spoiled child of doting parents who have no doubt that their handsome young son will prove a man of consequence. Nothing that Valentino does, his nights out on the town, his failed or incomplete classes, suggests there is any grounds for that confidence, and Valentino's sisters view their parents and brother with a mixture of bitterness, stoicism, and bemusement. Everything becomes that much more confused when, out of the blue, Valentino finds an enterprising, wealthy, and strikingly ugly wife who undertakes to support not just him, but the whole family. And then Sagittarius is another story of misplaced confidence recounted by a wary daughter whose mother, a grass widow? What does that mean? A grass widow is either a woman who has had an illegitimate child or a woman whose husband is temporarily away from her. I have never heard that term in my life, but Sagittarius, the mom, is a grass widow with time on her hands, moves to the suburbs, eager to find new friends. Brassy, bossy, and perpetually dissatisfied, especially when it comes to her children, she strikes up a friendship with the mysterious Scylla, and soon the two women are planning to open an art gallery. But knowing better than everyone, it turns out, is not that different from knowing nothing at all. So yeah, I don't think that these are necessarily like stories that are interconnected or related to each other. I am guessing that I'm gonna like Sagittarius more. That's just my initial vibe from reading the description, but I'm really curious about these. I think Natalia Ginzburg is a really underrated woman in translation, so definitely recommend you check out at least The Dry Heart if you haven't read that one yet. All right, I've got a book here that I'm bringing back from the soft DNF pile. I have definitely gotten a bit more free with choosing to put books down and come back to them later if I'm not feeling them. I've done that with quite a few books this year, and I feel like I'm better off for it. But I'm ready to perhaps tackle this one again, and that is The Passion According to G.H. by Clarice Lispector. I think I tried to read this back over the spring or the summer, and is my bookmark still in here? I got to page 57 and it just wasn't clicking for me. So I said, you know what, don't force it, just put it back on the shelf. You'll feel like it one day and you can just come back to it. And I think that we're gonna do that now. I absolutely love Clarice Lispector, and I see so many people singing the praises of this book, rating it 5 stars, and I'm just like not really sure what I was missing that first time around. I read recently Near to the Wild Heart by her. Absolutely loved that. An Apprenticeship or The Book of Pleasures by her is one of my favorite books of all time. So yeah, I feel like I should really love this one. This is about G.H., a well-to-do Rio sculptress. She enters her maid's room, sees a cockroach crawling out of the wardrobe, and panicking, slams the door on it. The sight of the dying insect provokes a mystical crisis, at the height which comes one of the most famous and most genuinely shocking scenes in Latin American literature. Clarice Lispector wrote that of all of her works, this novel was the one that best corresponded to her demands as a writer. Clarice loved it. I should love it too. I will probably start over with this from the beginning instead of starting at page 57. We're gonna get the full experience of this cockroach story. All right, so those are the 9 books that I purchased and have had on my shelves for a while that I'd like to get to, but I also have a couple of ARCs that have been sent to me by the publishers, and these all come out in either January or February, and I am really excited for them. So I would definitely like to get to them in the next couple of months. First of all, we have Good Girl by Aria Aber, unsure. This was sent to me by Hogarth, and it is publishing on January 14th, 2025. I do plan on doing a 2025 book releases video at the beginning of 2025 where I'll talk in depth about these arcs and a bunch of other books that I'm looking forward to. So I'm not going to read you the description for this one or the other two, but really looking forward to this. This is a debut novel, and I know Jalen has sung its praises. Next, I have We Do Not Part by Hong Kong, who just won the Nobel Prize for Literature, so I'm really excited to get to this one. This was also sent to me by Hogarth, and it releases on January 21st, 2025, and I believe that this goes into some like darker aspects of Korean history. I read Greek Lessons by Hong Kong last year, I think, and I like that one, so I'm excited to read more of her, especially since she's getting the recognition now. I'm really excited to see what this has to offer. And then finally, we have what I think is my most anticipated release of 2025 so far, Bibliophobia by Sarah Chihaya. This was sent to me by Random House, and it is publishing on February 4th, 2025. This is a memoir, and it is talking about the author's experience reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and talking about how that book was what she calls a life ruiner, and just like the effect that literature can have on us. And it sounds so good. It sounds exactly like the kind of memoir that I love. So I'm so excited for this. I do need to read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison as well. So maybe I'll pair this one with that and read them together. That might be fun. All right, guys, those are all of the books that I am hoping to prioritize in the winter season. Leave your guesses below on how many of these 12 books you think I will actually read. Let me remind you, I read 7 out of 10 for fall, so I feel like we're gonna get to like 9 out of 12 is my guess. I hope you guys are all staying cozy and warm and enjoying the winter season. Let me know what you're planning on picking up as it gets colder, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!